guys, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. Sorry this video is a little late. My schedule's been crazy. But I wanted to do a follow-up to kind of wrap up and round out my how to read a natal chart video. Those of you guys who didn't see it, I posted it last week, kind of going through the steps and the motions of how I assess a natal chart without even looking at aspects. We really focused on the sun, moon, and rising, as well as the chart ruler and as well as the nodes and aspects to the nodes. This is my part 2 video, and there will probably be a part 3 to bring it even further together and start talking about just more aspects within the natal chart and yeah, all that good stuff. So picked a sample chart today. I'm not going to tell you guys who it is till the end, but I did pick a sample chart and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about following up, like I said, on the steps of looking at other planets like Mercury, Venus, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. So if you guys are like, whoa, wait, what are you doing? If you're getting a little bit lost, go back and watch the video that I did that was talking about the very first steps to how I interpret a natal chart. I am a Western tropical astrologer. I have a real emphasis on evolutionary astrology, so I like to look at aspects to Pluto as well as aspects to the nodes. To each their own. Everybody's got their own way of doing it, but a lot of people ask me how I assess charts, and maybe if you guys are lucky, then we'll get into assessing transits on a chart, because I have a really good idea for somebody who I can use who's kind of prominent in the news right now, so maybe I will do that next. So here we have, if you guys take a look at the chart, the sample chart is for November 11th, 1974 at 2:47 a.m. in Los Angeles. So I am a Placidus reader. I'm working with Placidus housing system. So this is going to give this particular person a 3-degree Libra rising. Sun is at 18 degrees of Scorpio, and their moon is in 15 degrees of Libra in the first house. So kind of going off of my speed reading assessment of a chart, those of you guys who remember, we take a look at the sun, then we take a look at the moon, and then we take a look at the rising. Now, me personally, I look at the sign, the house, and the degree, okay? In my opinion, houses trump signs. So you wanna look at the placement of where the planet is. So if it's the sun or the moon, you wanna know what house is it in, what sign is it in, because that's the filter or the lens that you're looking through. And then you wanna look at the degree. Okay, so if we were to look at this, the sun is located in the second house. Traditionally, Taurus's house, very fixated, right? It's in a fixed sign even. So even though it's a Scorpio sun at 18 degrees in the second house, it's going to have a very second house feeling. So it's going to be similar to the energy of Taurus. Now, those of you guys who know, Scorpio is about passion. It's a fixed water sign ruled by Pluto and ruled by Mars. So when I look at the second house, this is a very passionate, very creative individual. What are they passionate about? Well, in this particular chart, the sun rules the natal 11th house of goals and associations, dreams. It is in Leo, so it's a very sparkly kind of placement. It does talk about belonging to groups or associations, or having friends that may be well known or maybe even famous. Then we look at the degree, which is 18 degrees, which is the energy of Virgo. I follow the degree astrology of Nicola. He has been somebody who through and through has kind of proven to me that this method is just super easy and very easy to kind of apply when looking at planets and house cusps. So 18 degrees is the energy of the helper, the perfectionist. Those of you guys who aren't aware, sometimes Virgo energy or sixth house energy can also deal with hospitality. It can also deal with acting. So it's interesting that we've got the sun ruling the 11th house of groups, and then the sun also at a Virgo degree can mean that they have famous friends that are actors or actresses or just people who are kind of in the public eye, right? Entertainers. So then we also look at that the sun is in conjunction to Venus. This is really actually quite lovely. This is a Venus cazimi that's kind of taking place here. And technically, whenever a planet is within 10 degrees of the sun, it's kind of like combust, it's blowing up, or it's kind of getting hit by the rays of the sun, and it can actually kind of dull the energy. But when a planet is ahead of the sun, within a degree, or actually I think it's within like 40 something, solar arc minutes, that's when you're going to actually see that it's a cazimi. It's pretty safe to say, because it's right around there, just in front of the sun, that this is a Sun-Venus cazimi. So extra kind of potent, because this is the ruler of the chart. Venus is the chart ruler. So you've got Venus in a very passionate sign in a conjunction to the sun, very fixated on things that are quality and things that feel good, really kind of indulging in all of those Taurus things, what tastes good, smells good, feels good. But this can be a very romantic person, very passionate person when it comes to their goals and how they move their body, right? The way that they deliver their passion, or the arts. They can be very talented in the arts because Venus deals with that. So we've looked at the sun. We've also looked at the chart ruler, which is Venus. Venus technically is not entirely too comfortable in Scorpio, which is ruled by Mars or Pluto, depending on how you look at it. Venus in Scorpio can kind of be tinged with this obsessive, fixating kind of love, this possessive love, but it can also be revolving around fear and whether or not it is capable of receiving love or holding on to love. So interesting that it's got the conjunction to the sun, which is a very unique kind of aspect, being that it rules the chart. Venus rules this chart. Can we talk about love for friends and love for money, love for food? Like I said, any of those second house things. Definitely, being that this is a man, it's interesting that the sun and the Venus are conjunct. He may have very beautiful, very attractive, sexy kind of women that are friends, or that he keeps in his circle, or maybe he remains friends with them. I don't know. And then we look at the moon. So the moon in this chart is located in the cardinal air sign Libra. So cool, you've got Libra rising, Libra moon, very emotional. When the moon is in the first house, wears the emotions on the sleeve, can be a little moody, okay? But definitely still resonating. Look at all this Libra, really resonating with the arts and anything of beauty, right? So all of these planets in the first house, Mercury, Uranus, the moon, Pluto, all sitting in Libra, is the way that this person approaches life and the way that they act or react. Obviously, more passion with the moon conjunct Pluto, really intense transformative moods, very passionate about what is theirs. The moon is the ruler of the 10th house, and it's located on the ascendant. So the public sees this person, they see this transformation of their career, this change and transformation of their emotions, and it's very visible. So this is a very theatrical kind of, even I would dare I say dramatic intensity is what I see with the moon conjunct Pluto. Now in Libra, and this all is very much still a Venusian energy, it's interesting when we throw it into the first house, because Libra risings are like mirrors. We can have a tendency to mirror and project onto other people. So what we absorb, I say we, I'm one, what we absorb from other people, we can kind of dish it right back. So just one thing that I think is interesting is the amount of aspects that the moon is actually making in this chart. The square to Saturn, which can represent this hardness or this challenge revolving around whatever Saturn rules. So maybe there is a sense of growing up in the public eye, working from a very young age. Moon square Saturn can represent some challenges revolving around relating to one parent or to the concept or the idea of parenting in general. But this also brings up themes revolving around nurturing. The moon Pluto in itself can kind of talk about this fear of emotional vulnerability because of emotional eruptions. But the square to Saturn, ruler of the 4th house, insinuates that this is somebody who may have issues revolving around what they're supposed to be, and the public or certain family members or certain just people out there have their own perspective of what this person is, that they are what they do. And there's a lot more to them than what they do. And they may have some challenges revolving around the idea of fourth house topics like settling down, maybe having a family, being a parent, right? Doing more kind of domestic stuff. There seems to be a little bit of unsettledness around that. Now, then we also look at the fact that the moon is technically coming into a sextile here with both Neptune, ruler of the sixth house, which is career or who they're working with or how they're working out in the world. And it's also making a sextile to the North Node. So it's interesting because it's clear that with the North Node conjunct Neptune, it's somebody who may write for a living or somebody who is on screens, right? Neptune rules screens. So they may do theatrical work, television work, commercial work, or they may just be around areas where there is filming or writers, third house, or creatives. Notice that the dispositor of both Neptune and the North Node, the ruler of the North Node, Jupiter, is in the sixth. So it's like, I work with these people. I have talent with this. I have talent for vision. I have talent for perfection. Perfection is the word that I would use here. All right. So like I said, we started breaking down the sun. Also, I noticed the sun makes a trine to Saturn. So there is some seriousness to their goals, some real commitment to their goals, and anything relating to that. We looked at the sun. We looked at the moon. We also have looked at the rising. So next I would look at the nodes, the house placement, sign, and degrees. So we talked a little bit about the North Node Neptune conjunction, exploring more dreamy, creative, otherworldly forms of communication and self-expression. So being that the the North Node is ruled by Jupiter, Pisces, rules Sagittarius, Jupiter is in Pisces, it rules Sagittarius. You have Jupiter square the nodes. So that represents a need to integrate more of that Jupiterian energy in the sixth house, going deeper into the craft, right? Perfecting things, working with screens, working with storytelling. And what I love about this is planets square the nodes really put an emphasis on, hey, in this lifetime, you really must do this in order to achieve your North Node or your Dharma. So something about Jupiter square the nodes, I feel like is really kind of reiterating that you must do this Jupiter work, right? Whether it's helping, being of service, donating resources, focusing on animals, water, preservation, things like that. And a real exact square between Jupiter and Neptune, wowzers, anything revolving around cutting through where words can't really express, right? I think of Neptune in the third house is trying to find the words, and then Jupiter in the sixth says, oh, I have the solution, I have the answer. So it may very well be that this person uses a matter of perfectionism to really hone in on their craft so they could really tell a story very well visually, and especially when they don't have the words. Could think of worse things than Jupiter square the node, especially Jupiter in Pisces, right? So then we look at the South Node is in the ninth house, and it's breaking away from cultural challenges, too big of ideas, traveling around too much. This is also ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is conjunct Uranus. So this person is quite Uranian with the moon, with the Uranus-Mercury conjunction, especially at 29 degrees. Anytime I see 29 degrees, it's like a marker of either psychic capability, intuitiveness, or it can also be seen as just like a very karmic number, and it represents something that they really have to fine-tune in this lifetime, right? So sun, moon, rising, we looked at the nodes, We looked at Pluto a little bit. Pluto on the ascendant can be intense, kind of brooding energy, very sexy when it's in Libra, very alluring. Somebody who may be seen as a bit of a sex symbol in their own right because of the conjunction with the moon and Pluto on the ascendant. So now we move into the other planetary placements. And so when we're looking at this, obviously this is like very bare bones kind of crash course, but let's start with Mercury. Mercury can represent how we send and receive messages, how we communicate, how we think, our tone, our writing style, how we have a tendency to receive information, and Mercury is in Libra. Now, Mercury in Libra is interesting because it's in the first house. You have to remember that Libra rising charts are already kind of ass backwards in a way. They have to learn a life of balance, so all of the houses are inverted. But with the Mercury in Libra, which is a little indecisive, a little bit like, I don't know, what do you want? Like if you ever asked a Mercury in Libra where they want to go out to dinner, they're probably going to be like, what do you want? You know, like there's a sense of not always knowing or being able to make a decision. Not always. But Mercury in the first house is usually really quick to say what's on their mind and what they think. And it can be that they're very receptive and they can communicate in a very kind of daring and courageous way, very confident, but very eloquent. It's very beautiful, right? Beautiful voice or a way that they come across, or they give the people what they want. They know how to really put on a show. Mercury rules the South Node, like I said, and the 9th house, which has to do with education, philosophy, and travel. Mercury also rules traditionally the sign of Virgo, which is the ruler of the 12th house. Now, it tells me that with the Mercury at 29, super psychic, very intuitive, but also conjunct Uranus, which is abstract, sudden, intuitive, almost people would consider this an emotional genius or a communicative genius. A lot of the sudden response systems and how they communicate, at first it may seem a little manic or even stressed, when in reality it's very divine. They are actually pulling from divine inspiration because the 12th house is that. Now, they may really resonate with some of the, how do I put this? I'm trying not to give it away. Some of the roles that they end up participating in or playing, or the characters, and they may feel like they really have to get into that character and they're super focused and they almost have to kind of like lose their mind a little bit to kind of get into that. Very visual, so they will really think through everything. And like I said, divine inspiration kind of comes from that conjunction of the 12th and the 9th house lord in the first. Now, with it conjunct Uranus, Uranus is about where we rebel, where we're different, where we take a step back and we decide that we want to go a completely different way. Uranus is very shocking and sudden and unexpected, so that's where I'm getting that from the Mercury-Uranus conjunction. But Uranus is the ruler of the 5th house. So interesting that the 5th house deals with love affairs, it deals with passion, it deals with dating, boyfriends, girlfriends, all of that stuff, and it's conjunct Mercury. So this tells me that they are really a charmer, right? They really know what lovers or romantic interests want to hear. They're a very creative person. They like creating with partners and in pairs, Libra. And they go after what they want with Uranus and Mercury on their ascendant. It's like they see something across the room that's attractive, they lock eyes, they go, hey, you, and they know exactly what to say to pull them in. So that's an interesting aspect that this person has there. I'm especially loving the trine that it has to Lilith, but I'll save that for another episode. So Uranus is technically where we're just a little different or a little bit more abstract or have a tendency to go against the grain. So, you know, I have looked at this person's chart before, but I don't think I ever really honed in on the fact that the Mercury-Uranus conjunction was at 29. Apparently, this is somebody who might be very open more to astrology in the next couple of years. It'll be interesting to see what happens as they're working out of some Pluto squares or maybe even Saturn trines. So then we move on to Mars, and in a man's chart, it can be about how they show their passion or their drive or anything revolving around their kind of like sexual primal desires, how they carry themselves in that sense. So Mars for a woman's chart can be the kind of man that she goes after, or how she shows her courage or her aggressiveness. But I have found that in men's chart, they show their Mars, they seek Venus. In women's chart, you know, they show their Venus, they seek Mars, if that makes sense. And this isn't about even sexual identity or gender. I mean, I guess technically it is if you're looking at a man or a woman's chart, but it's not really about sexual preference, I guess is what I'm saying. So if they happen to be a man and they're interested in men, you're still going to see them, you know, going, I think, after their Venus sign. I don't necessarily think it's connected to Mars, if that makes sense. I try not to botch this. I know there's like so many different just identities going on in the world, so I want to be respectful to all of those. You guys kind of get what I'm saying. But Mars is really about where we show courage and drive and determination and passion. So Mars being in its home sign of Scorpio, super passionate, kind of bubbling over with sexuality, sensuality, possessiveness, especially in the second house, and earning capability, right? Because Mars is in its home sign and it's in the second house. So extra punch. We've got Mars in this house, so they know how to make money. They know how to spend money. Best believe they know how to romance, and they may be in situations with partners where partners are a little possessive over them because Mars rules their seventh house, Aries. So very passionate individual, especially when it comes to just relationships in general. Now, we talked about the sun and that the sun really deals with the core identity, maybe the ego, maybe their creative sense of self. It's a very personal planet. Venus is going to relate more to values, you know, preferences like food, relationships, anything that tastes good, feels good, smells good, especially in the second house. Love to see a Venus in the second house because Venus traditionally is ruled by Taurus and Libra. So even though it's technically in a sign that's not so comfortable, it's in a Mars-Pluto ruled sign, Scorpio, it's very comfortable in the second house, and it definitely knows a thing or two about quality, whether this is quality money, resources, investments, buying nice things, having nice things. Some would suggest this is a collector of sorts with Mars in the second house and the sun in Venus, a collector of art, right? A collector of maybe even provocative art or sexual art, it's possible. And somebody who just has a real appreciation for Venus. And what is Venus? Women's bodies, how they look, pretty bodies, hot bodies, sexual bodies. So this person might have quite the body count. You get what I'm saying? But I think with Venus being here, it's tapered a little bit because Venus has a trine to Saturn. So it does have respect for women. It's not just kind of sexualizing anything that it sees. Venus trine Saturn can insinuate that there is a real commitment to quality work, quality projects, creative projects, and resources that are actually going to be funneled into things like real estate. Saturn in Cancer, ruler of the fourth, family, preservation of family, anything revolving around real estate. And this is a chart that's here to build wealth for future generations, okay? So then we move on to Neptune, and Neptune deals more with a spiritual love. It deals with our vision, our perspective on other dimensions. It's, some would say, the higher octave of Venus. Neptune can be ecstasy or agony, to be honest with you. I've seen some situations where Neptune can be a dream come true, and I've seen some situations where Neptune can actually just be a total foggy mess. It just depends on the aspect of your Neptune. I'm a fan of Neptune sextile the ascendant. Okay, so that nice 60-degree angle between Neptune and the ascendant. A very nice voice, very charismatic, very clear, very kind of dreamy. And I think that with Neptune square Jupiter, there can be some perception issues. There can be some like over traveling, over drinking, you know, over having a good time. But somebody who can be a very profound writer, and certainly the goal is to focus on either like writing or storytelling or producing to some extent. So that might be just a real emphasis here. And some of the bigger things that they accomplish may be third house things like writing, teaching, educating, publishing, things like that. So Neptune, which many times can also represent what we isolate ourselves from, or what we kind of pair ourselves to, and where we give unconditionally against all, you know, odds, regardless of the cost. So this can be somebody who's had some challenges and has struggled, perhaps because Neptune rules the 6th house, with a smoking habit or a smoking addiction. 3rd house is breathing. It can also be somebody who's had a lot of stress and anxiety in regards to pressure with their career and emotions and how to communicate that. So once again, you know, I'm kind of seeing Neptune in a fire sign as being somebody who's either smoking or getting on a plane and they're like, see you later, take it off. And that's how they deal with stuff. They may want to be very soft-spoken in how they communicate, and very spiritual and philosophical. And this might be somebody who can have some profound insights just spiritually with Neptune on the North Node. Then we're going to move, we talked a little bit about Jupiter, but again, Jupiter ruling the 3rd house, located in the 6th, square the nodes in Pisces, and we've got Jupiter conjunct Juno. That may insinuate that with the squares to the nodes, one of the bigger kind of goals or accomplishments may actually be about partnership. Whether this is marital partnership, Juno and Jupiter do love each other, but really partnership in the sense of being of service. So just a little insight, and we'll talk about this, but I do have a feeling with this person going through their Jupiter return here pretty soon, and then some transits that are going to be going on in their natal 7th, I will go as far as saying I do think this person is going to settle down pretty quickly. Here in the next year, we might hear news that they're actually seriously finally committing to somebody, and maybe not only that, considering getting married and having children in the next year or two. I'll speculate. But we'll get to that. Just with Jupiter, Juno, they may have a spouse or partners that they work with that they're good friends with, or people who they've worked with before. Maybe they've, you know, worked on projects or written together or what have you. Maybe that's how he meets his future spouse. Maybe his future spouse is involved in nonprofit work of some kind, or dedicating time or services, or this potential future spouse might be like an actress. That's possible as well. We're going to skip over here to Saturn, and we're going to talk about Saturn. I'm skipping the asteroids, guys. We'll talk about that in another video. But Saturn represents karma, limitation, responsibility, where we buckle down and we get real growth and maturity. Some of you guys have heard about your Saturn's return. The Saturn's return happens between like 28 and 30 years of age. It comes back to where it was when you were born, and you start a whole new Saturn cycle. So we'll do more on that in the future. But right now, Saturn being in the 10th house in Cancer, first of all, it does not do so well in Cancer. So traditionally, we like to see Saturn in Aquarius or in Capricorn. So it's already kind of got that working against itself. We have Saturn in the 10th, which is nice because Saturn does like to be at the top of the chart. So there is an emphasis on career. But in the sign of Cancer, square the moon tells me that there's been more of an emphasis on career and building the outer life. Maybe this person has had hesitation revolving around, once again, domestic and home stuff, settling down, having children, or issues revolving around home and relationship to a parent figure, possibly the mother. It's possible with this square. Now, Saturn also represents where we grow and mature, and really, you know, maybe it's me, I'm very Saturn based, but I've grown to really love Saturn and appreciate Saturn because what Saturn has given me. Saturn's given me the opportunity to really focus on boundaries and clearer goals and just having more maturity. So where you find Saturn in a person's chart is going to talk about these topics. Now, Saturn is in a square to the moon, so it represents kind of blocked emotions or challenges in terms of relating emotionally, especially body language, like body language versus how he's really feeling might be kind of different. He might put on more of like a responsible kind of like, oh, out in the world, I'm super Saturn, I'm very committed, I'm very responsible. But in terms of his own relationship with himself or behind the scenes, may not be the case. Saturn in the 10th represents real focus on career, and in the sign of Cancer of being like a nurturer or a caretaker of some kind. We also notice that Saturn is in a square to Chiron, so I will mention that with Saturn square Chiron and also Mercury Uranus. Perhaps maybe this is someone who's focused so much on their career that they've had challenges defining who they are outside of that, or being able to kind of find the way to committed relationships and domestic union. Then we move to Pluto, and Pluto represents where we transform. It's really about regeneration. Pluto is the planet that's furthest in the solar system, so it does represent death, rebirth, regeneration, loss, and working through pain. So when Pluto's on the ascendant, none of these topics are strange or foreign to this person. They're very Plutonian. They have a tendency to be very attractive, alluring, charismatic. They can almost have like X-ray vision and they can see through bullshit. Pluto in Libra is about learning through change and transformation of relationship, but in the first house of oneself, one's own personal power and relationship with themselves. Now in this chart, Pluto rules the second house of resources. So it can represent basically that, all of the challenges in breakdowns in relationships with others and himself has actually been fuel towards creative kind of fires, right? And really focusing on what he's building and what he's creating. Loving the fact that he does have, for the most part, like I said, a sextile to the North Node in Neptune. Pluto does kind of square the midheaven and also the IC, so he is kind of the person who's wielding the power of changing and transforming his relationship with others and himself to better kind of work through some of these struggles relating to who he is out in the world beyond just how people know him. So I'm guessing you guys all want to know who this is. It's one of my favorite people. It's Leonardo DiCaprio. And I feel like a lot of these things really resonate, at least just as far as like I've just kind of seen his career play out. I love his chart. His chart's kind of eerily similar to mine, so I really love what he's got going on, and I'm very curious to see how some of these transits are going to manifest for him in this next year. Jupiter return. He's also getting ready to have Uranus oppose his Sun and his Venus. Jupiter is going to go into his 7th of marriage. Saturn is going to be in his 5th, trining his moon. I don't know, maybe in the next like 12 to 24 months, we're going to see Leo finally settle down, maybe get married, have a kid, and start doing more of his inner work, which I'm really excited to see him do because it's really about inner work for him in the next couple of years. Hopefully you guys liked this video. It was helpful in just kind of helping you guys see how simple it can really be to break down a natal chart and better understand the interpretations that we've got going on here. Don't hesitate to let me know if you have any questions. Be sure to hit that subscription button, so that way the bell button, so you can be alerted to when I am putting videos out there. I will do a part 3 where we can actually look at the asteroids, and maybe we'll start looking at transits, because I have another chart where I want to show you guys some cool stuff that's going on with somebody in particular, where you can really see crystal clear how whatever's playing out in their life publicly is in their chart. So if you guys like this content, be sure to let me know. Thank you for watching. And if you would like to book a reading with me, check out my links below. Check out my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com. I'll be back in this next week. We're doing live readings on Saturday night. Astro Weather is coming out Sunday. And yeah, if you guys haven't already seen the astrology video for February, check it out. I also have horoscopes out now. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see all of you very soon. Take care.